Welcome, everybody, back to another Microsoft Unboxed Pod. This is episode 28. I am your host today, Kareem Anderson, and I'm joined by.
David Allen, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us for 28 episodes, and hopefully we can make 28 interesting for you and roll on to 29.
Yeah, we actually have a few headlines, many to do with Microsoft this week, even though it was a relatively quiet week for the company specifically. But with that being said, let's just get you into what we're going to be talking about this week. We have our first story is going to be about the Meta Quest and a new link that allows kind of some better, more advanced VR experiences going forward. Microsoft remembered that Paint 3D was a thing, and then they decided to kill it off. We'll get into details about that and when you Paint 3D aficionados need to have all your stuff wrapped up and purposed somewhere else. Google launched a bunch of phones and a bunch of AI software, so we're going to talk about that because, hey, it's news. We're streaming Android apps to your Windows PC, not with Pixel phones, but with Samsung phones, and it got a little bit easier. It's becoming a little bit more integrated between Windows and Android world, and we'll explain how that's going to happen. We also have Qualcomm, kind of still doing a victory lap, and in doing so, they're also touting what's coming next for next year, and that is cheaper laptops with longer battery for Windows users. We have OneDrive is going to be reclaimed. Unlicensed OneDrive licenses will be reclaimed by Microsoft, and they will charge you in order to get access to that stored information. We also have Copilot. Went through a bunch of news this week as well. Red Hat was, I believe, earlier this week or this weekend, past weekend, and a bunch of people, one person in particular, found about 15 different ways to hack Copilot, which is bad news for anybody who uses Copilot. Fortunately, he is a white hat hacker, so he spoke with Microsoft, and they're working together to kind of fix that. But he has a couple sessions on how to do it, and we'll get into that. With that being said, Microsoft has then issued some updates that will be going out to enterprise Copilot users, customers, people who pay for it, to protect their data. Hopefully, that level of update and security will trickle down to the rest of us who don't pay for it. And then lastly, Microsoft is in the works of offering prompt suggestions on how to use Copilot in an effort to get people to use it more, kind of give us a stepping stone on how to use AI, because right now they just kind of give it to you and hope you don't create text-based images of random stuff. You can do a lot more with it. So, and we'll get into the reason why they're going to do that as well. With all that being said, I am done. I am tired of talking. I'm going to let my co-host jump in. David, take us to our first story, please.
Be glad to, my friend. We're going to start out with something with Meta Quest that I think is a little interesting, but a little convoluted too. I'm not real sure how this is going to go over. For those that don't use VR, Meta Quest is a series of VR headsets. They're on the third generation with Meta Quest 3. Meta Quest 4 is supposedly around the corner. I am a Meta Quest 2 owner myself. When these headsets first came out, you had they were standalone experiences, meaning that software interaction and everything was right there in the headset. You could pick up your headset, watch videos. I think you could watch the movies, and you could enjoy VR apps. Now, shortly after that, for folks like myself, Meta came out with the Quest Link cable, and they came out with AirLink. AirLink allowed you to enjoy PC VR experiences over Wi-Fi, providing you had the bandwidth in your house to do that, and the VR Link cable allowed you to plug it directly to a compatible USB-C port on your PC for doing things like VR racing and the more intense stuff. Well, now Quest has said, or Meta has said, look, we've got another way for you to connect your device. They're calling it HDMI Link, which allows you to, guess what, use HDMI or DisplayPort to connect to some of your devices. Now, before we start getting all excited, because when I first read this and didn't go any further, I thought, great, because some desktops in particular that you won't see USB for with your MetaQuest headset do not allow video over that. They do not allow power over that port at times. It's just like for plugging in an external hard drive or something to that matter that's USB-C based. So kind of takes away from your ability to use the MetaQuest headset on some, there's one here to my right, on some desktop computers. So I thought, well, maybe they've come out with an adapter to go from USB-C to HDMI, and you can plug it in the back of your video card, and it's going to work. Nope, not quite. It is more or less a streaming extra screen, and I'm going to explain that meaning. For example, you've got your phone, and you've got a USB-C adapter plugged into your phone, USB-C to HDMI. Here's the catch. You can't plug it straight in. You can't do that. That's what I thought you could do. And you could enjoy the content in your VR headset. That would make too much sense. But no, in this case, because the headset is UVC and UAC, think webcam here, you have to have some kind of capture card to go in between the headset and your device so the headset can then communicate. So I get what Meta's trying to do here. The example that they gave was, screens in your house are full, or you're in a hotel and you've only got one screen and multiple people. Throw your headset on and plug in your phone and enjoy your content in peace. I agree with that. But how many people are going to say, well, let me go get that capture card and let me make sure I carry all those cables with me in my bag, or bring all those cables to the living room so I can watch my favorite show from my phone to my headset. So good idea, Meta, but I feel like we're missing the boat here. Now, maybe you have done all that the current Meta hardware is capable of. So how about putting the encoder in the headset so we can go direct in HDMI, direct in DisplayPort, direct in USB-C, and try this again? Then I think you got something.
All right. I think you've exhausted that topic. I don't really have much else to add to it. So we're going to move on to our next one, which is Microsoft killing Paint 3D. For those of you who are.
What was that?
What's up?
What was that? What was Paint 3D?
I was going to say, for those of you living under a rock in a cave, or new to Windows, or maybe just or an average Windows user who wasn't in the weeds like the rest of us, there's a thing called Paint 3D that was introduced back in Windows 10 when Microsoft was, to your previous topic, trying to butt in on AR VR experiences. So they thought one way was to encourage creators to use an app that already was infused with 3D aspects or features for creativity and content making. It was a relatively cool app. The problem was that it was a resource hog, and it was bare bones for it wasn't really suitable for people who were avid 3D content creators because it didn't have the necessary tools that it needed to be a robust option. And for those of us who were amateurs, it was overly complicated. It wasn't intuitive. Didn't really get you going on a lot of things. And like I said, Microsoft spent the first few months of this endeavor trying to add features. It was supposed to be the replacement to the coveted traditional inbox Paint app that everyone's kind of knows as the go-to copy paste / random augmentation editing feature in Windows. I think Paint has a nostalgic place in everyone's heart. Like I said, if you need a quick edit, if you need to do some quick copy pasting, cropping, anything like that, you go to Paint. Anyway, it went by the wayside. Paint 3D kind of faltered when Windows 10 decided to shift up some things, and even more so when Windows 11 showed up. And over the last year and a half, Microsoft's actually been doing a relatively good job of adding features to the inbox Paint app, which people already know, a myriad of people already know how to use. And they've added things like layers. They've added this co-create ability, so you can do text to image pre-generated content creation. It's added more brushes. It's added stuff to support theming. So if you have a dark mode, light mode, those kind of things, to get people in the mood of like, here's your bare bones version of Photoshop. With that being said, as of November this year, I believe, 2024, Paint 3D is going to go away. You will not be able to get it in the Microsoft Store, and all your content that was saved through it or stored via the APIs for Paint 3D will be gone. So you will need to figure out some way to export that somewhere, save it on a hard drive in some other format so that you can reopen it and reuse it elsewhere. But November 4th, 2024, Paint 3D is going away. And like I said, I wouldn't say good riddance. There are a lot of things that can still be brought over from Paint 3D into current Paint and make it a much more robust thing. But to those of us who are longtime Windows users, this is just another instance of Microsoft duplicating its efforts for relatively little gain. We had this similar situation with Outlook, where you had about 4 different mail clients running at the same time. Paint 3D and Paint were both running at the same time to ostensibly do do relatively the same things. So hopefully Microsoft, again, consolidates a lot of these features, brings them over to Paint, and we just have a more robust single option for content creators. What are your thoughts?
I was never a Paint 3D user. I'm gonna be honest. I knew it existed. I knew what it was. I never used it. So I think that says a lot. And I think we've got Microsoft Designer out there now with the AI built in for generating things. We've got Clipchamp just got some recent updates and some updates coming. I think we've got a good selection, I think, from most creators. And like you said, Microsoft is improving Paint. I think Microsoft needs to stick to its guns instead of trying to make separate apps to do different things. I would rather see one, if we're going to do this, I would rather see one cohesive Paint app get the job done than to make multiple apps. I feel like multiple apps doing the same thing just confuses consumers. I know if it confuses us, and it does me, then definitely it's confusing consumers.
Agreed. We're going to move on to our next topic, which is another robust topic, but a little bit more fun because instead of something going away, we're getting something coming, right? We are getting a bunch of new hardware from Google. As a Windows fan, you're probably scratching your head like, why am I excited? Well, because we don't have a Windows phone. Get off my back.
That's right.
This is the next best thing. Let us know what we're getting from Google, David.
Well, I think what Google, I'm going to say it up front. I think what Google did this week in the hardware point of view and kind of where we're going is a pretty good place to be. I think, us Microsoft fans, we rely on the Google phones because that's where we get our integration from for the most part. There is basic integration with PhoneLink with iOS, but if you want the good stuff, you've really got to have some sort of Google phone. So, as my partner said there, we do get excited when Google gives us new toys. This week, we got the Pixel Fold. Let me make sure I get this right. The Pixel 9 Fold Pro. Boy, that's a mouthful. I'm going to call it the Fold Pro. So, a little bit thinner. Let's go ahead and knock that out. A little bit thinner. It's Google says the largest screen when you open it up. It's a full 8 inches on that one. I think the Samsung Fold 6 is 7.6. And something interesting with the Fold, just like the first generation, both sides of the screen are the same. So when you open it up, you've got both. You don't have the small outside screen, is what I'm getting at. You don't have the small, more that's more tall. It is even on the screen. So there are those that prefer that approach. I prefer that approach. You do get the new features that you do see on some Samsung phones. Circle to Search and Gemini Plus. We do get improved fingerprint readers, improved facial recognition this year. We do get what Google is calling the super, I'm going to call it the Actua Flex display. It's up to 80% brighter. The phone is also IPX8 water resistant, which means 1.5 meters, or it can be fully submerged up to 30 minutes. Please don't try that with your brand new Google Pixel phone. Something I found neat for the Fold in specific was if you're a YouTube TV subscriber with the NFL season coming up, and if you're really deep in the NFL, you know that YouTube TV has the NFL Sunday Ticket license now. You can use your new Fold Pro to display multiple game streams on your folding device. So that was pretty good. Now, before I jump into just a few updates on the Pixel and the Pixel 8 Pro and AT&T not selling the Pro Fold, what are your thoughts, my friend?
Uh, they are. I'm interested. It's mixed.
Me
I
too.
do. I love the straightforwardness of a Pixel. I do notice when I tend to review them, I get a little bit bored with them just because I like to customize my things every so often, every 6 months to a year. So I like to play around with just the look and design of my phone. And with Samsung, I can do that. With Pixel, not so much. But I do like the design of the phone. They've
Yes.
changed it. The outer hardware resembles that. Everyone said it over and over that it resembles an iPhone. For those of you who don't agree with that, I can see your argument. For those of you who do, I can also see that argument. I do. The camera bump is very distinguished. That is one thing that is exclusively Pixel. But if you were to just look at them laying flat on their backs, it looks relatively like an iPhone, which is, I think you and I discussed. It is what it is. It is probably the culmination of everyone's hard work in the smartphone industry kind of coming to a head. Like, hey, this is probably the best design we'll get for a smartphone. These kind of rounded, square-ish round slab devices. As far as the specs go, I'm very hopeful. This Tensor 4 is across the board. They're not doing this weird, like, oh, you get last year's generation while this phone gets this year's generation. And from what people early initial reviews of these kind of things is it doesn't get as hot. It's a little more power efficient. So hopefully these batteries, which I believe haven't really changed all that much from the last phone to this phone, will at least get optimized so that you can squeeze maybe another hour or so out of these batteries, when I know Pixel phones, for the most part, have had issues with long-lasting batteries, and maybe it's just the necessary NPUs are now put in place so that all the AI stuff that used to be pinging the cloud, which can tap your modem and things like that, and exhaust the battery for those things, will now be being done on the phone. You won't have to do that anymore. So again, I'm looking forward to that. They had a bunch of they spent about 20 minutes talking about the cameras. Cameras are great. They've always been great. I feel like they're great across the board for Samsung, for an iPhone, things like that. I don't do a lot of content creation on the device. I know my wife does on her iPhone. She makes a lot of Instagram and stuff like that. So all those new AI features, as far as being able to manipulate stuff, pull things from the background, those are going to go wasted on me. But again, I'm hoping for the people who do make use of it, they are going to have fun with that. I'm going to let you get back to, because I know we did the Fold. If I were to kind of compare it to the Pixel Fold, it looks like it's a better design because you get more outer screen real estate. But the one thing we'll have to see in testing is the multitasking on this thing. That is something that Pixel is very bare bones about. You get two apps
On each side.
Exactly. On the Samsung, you can get up to 4, depending on if you want to do a picture-in-picture. So, and again, we'll talk about how you can encourage people to multitask on a phone. I feel like no one's done it better than Microsoft, because you had 2 separate things, and it kind of forced you because it left one of the screens blank. So you're like, hey, I got to fill it with something. So I don't think the bigger screen on the outside solves any of that on the inside for Pixel Folds. And Samsung hasn't really updated their multitasking software. So maybe OnePlus with their Fold can encourage these other two guys to kind of, hey, think of some new things outside the box for our open displays on the inside instead of just saying, hey, you have more screen real estate to treat your phone like you did before. I'll let you take it from there.
And I think too, we get into kind of what we do with AI. We get into what users prefer and what users are willing to do. And I think you make all valid points, and I agree with each one of them. But I think Google is, and Samsung to some degree are watching to see how much users want to multitask on these devices. Because let's face it, you brought up a very good point there. Our phones these days, other than being used for phones, are being used for content consumption. And I feel like in some ways that's the whole purpose of these, folding phones, because only a small percentage of us have got email open on one side and we're working on our phone on the other side. That percentage is smaller in the grand scheme of things. So I think Google is watching to say how much multitasking do our consumers want to do, and I think Samsung's doing the same thing, and I think that might even be why Apple has been a little hesitant to offer true multitasking on their devices. Now, not to go too far off topic, I have had a chance to use Final Cut Pro on an iPad. Nice product, but it's mighty stupid that I have to sit there and wait for the render to finish before I can put another app over top of it. So, as long as we don't get into those items, I think we're okay. I was happy to see Google recognize something that in order to, and it was actually said on stage, I don't remember the exact wording, to where we wanted to have parity among all the devices and you didn't have to pay for the larger screen to get all the features. I think we have finally realized not everybody wants the larger screen, and that's really the purpose of the Pixel 9 XL. That's the difference between the Pro and the XL this year. I think it's about one is 6.6 inches and the other one is 6.9 inches. So I commend what we're doing here, and we're about to be disappointed again here in a few weeks, I'm afraid, because Apple is going to go Pro and Pro Ultra, or Pro Ultra 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 smashing, and in order to get the full thing, you have to buy the Pro Ultra smashing, smashing, smashing at, some astronomical price. To wrap it up, I will talk about the AT&T issue here in just a second, but to wrap the phones up, this is the first year that Google has produced a phone that I would be willing to go buy their fold phone. I'm going
Yeah.
to say it. I'm going to say it up front. I was not too enthused last year. They got off to a good start. I would absolutely love to get a Fold 9 Pro in my hands, see what it's about, and if I had to purchase it, I would consider it. Now, a little
But you can't if you're an
That's
AT&T.
where I was going. You said you stole my segue there, buddy. I was going to segue us right on into that. If you're an AT&T user, surprisingly, right after the day after the event this week, AT&T is not carrying the new Google Fold phone in any of their online or sales locations. I actually checked their website before we came to do the pod here just to see if, maybe it was a snafu and something had popped up. So if you're an AT&T user, I did neglect to mention that this Fold phone is expensive. It's $17.99. I feel bad for if you're an AT&T user because you can't get that payment plan that a lot of people need to go with to be able to get a device like this. So you have to buy what is called an unlocked phone, which means in most cases, unless you do some kind of third party financing, you're going to have to buy the phone outright. But we're not even totally sure that AT&T is going to activate that phone on their network. And AT&T has not said exactly what the issue is here. We can only suspect. Normally, it's a contract thing. Do they have a contract with Samsung and something exclusive and the fold comes later? That would be, I would hope that would be the obvious. The other issue that I have seen with AT&T, maybe there's a feature on the phone that doesn't completely agree with their network and hasn't been fixed yet. AT&T said, no, don't bring that over here. So,
I mean, in all fairness, this is kind of what happened with the Surface Duo 2, and I
mhm.
think it's a mutual, if not led by AT&T, based on the numbers. They may not have sold enough Pixel folds the first time around to warrant an addendum to the contract. Like you're saying, Google probably comes to AT&T and says, "Hey, we have a new phone. We want to sell it. We want to take a piece of shelf in your offices. We want to take some space on your online, some channels to dedicate to selling this device." And AT&T says, "Hey, sorry, man, that device doesn't sell. We're not going to waste time with that. You're more than welcome to attach it to our network, but people have to pay for that outright. We're not financing it. We're not going to be marketing it. We're not going to be taking time or space, shelf space to do that. Your other phones, your pros, your regular
Yeah,
single slab ones, those do decent enough. We will mess around with that, and we will entertain those, but we won't do the fold again." And that's what they did with the Duo. They sold Microsoft's first Duo normally through AT&T. You could finance it. It was on the shelf. They didn't do very good much marketing, but you could at least go into the store and play with it, and get a version of that phone. Surface Duo 2, Microsoft probably went to them again and said, "We want to sell it." They probably said, "You don't have the numbers to do it." And they said, "Fine, we'll do it ourselves. We'll sell it through our own channels." And I think that's kind of what's happening now. Now, again, it doesn't mean that that's the same thing for T-Mobile here in the States,
I was
uh,
going to say T-Mobile and Verizon are
and
still kicking
Verizon.
out with the normal things consumers are used to with being able to go in and finance the
Right.
$1,700 phone.
And if you're
So
on
yeah,
Cricket, you're probably at best going to get just the Pixel 9. So don't even think about it.
yeah.
I think we've talked enough phones. Let's move on to we still got a bunch of other headlines. We're going to talking about Android apps working together with Windows even better. It's a slight improvement. You and I were just discussing it. It was so slight that you almost thought you missed it. Uh, Basically, what people are going to be allowed to do going forward, hopefully, is stream their apps from their Android phone, particularly Samsung phones, straight to their Windows devices. You can currently do that, but there's always a prompt, and it's every time you want to do it, you're suggested to go to your phone, unlock your phone to allow the streaming portion to work. So for those of you living under a rock, there is an app in Windows 11, called Phone Link that allows you to connect your phone and kind of do what they do uh, on an Apple and an iPhone, where you can answer phone calls, you can get text messages, you can respond to text messages, you can see notifications from your phone, because there are apps that you have on your phone that may not be on Windows. And you may not just want to duplicate that kind of stuff. And you can store it all in this cool little app called Phone Link. And so now, what you can do when they say app streaming is basically any app on your phone can be displayed with and utilized on a Windows device. And if you have a touchscreen, you can navigate it the same way you do on your phone. But like, as I mentioned at the top, in order to do this every time you want to do it, you have to kind of go through this process of authorizing your phone by unlocking it to say, all right, now you can stream. And the phone has to be on. It has to stay on. When the phone goes off, the connection severed. This new version, and then again, they're just testing it with Windows Insiders currently, and only a handful can do it because it's only enabled on the two latest devices from Android or from Samsung, which run One UI 6.11, are the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 and the Z Flip 6. So even though if you have an S24 Ultra, any of the S's phones or whatever beyond that, you won't be able to do it just yet. Again, we're hoping that they utilize this, what they call media projection API. And again, that's what they used to do. I think they moved on to Android's companion app streaming API. Hopefully they'll be able to make that switch for later phones so that all of us can start doing that. They can't even do it for the phone link to the Duo, which is, Microsoft's flagship phone, or was. So we at least know that going forward, they're still working with Android, and we might be able to just, without having to open up our phone, just start using the apps, because there's an app section in Phone Link you can go to and pick any of the apps you want to start using. So if you prefer the Instagram app on the phone versus the Instagram app on Windows, you can start using that one. Same thing for TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, and the rest of those. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I use this feature every day. I'm gonna keep this brief though. That little nag screen, and that's what I call it, where it pops up on your phone and says, "Do you want to start sharing?" Yes, and if you, throughout the day, you probably, if you're a user of this feature, you probably hit that button 10 times. The other thing I hope this fixes, and I hope I can get my hands on a Fold 6 to try it. I hope this helps battery life too, because sometimes when you're using a different API, you're doing things more efficiently. So I hope this helps battery life, because when you're doing this app streaming thing, you're doing it over your Wi-Fi. Number one, keep that in mind. Number two, it's a constant connection, so the radio on your Wi-Fi is constantly running. I have used it enough. You better keep your phone plugged in if you plan to use your phone away from the charger for the rest of the day. It is a little bit of a battery hog.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just cap it with saying that it's should be one UI 6.1.1 should be coming out to the S22, S23, S24 lineup. So, and the company Fold devices, so the Fold 4, 5, and we already have 6 supported. So hopefully, I believe by this time, or I guess in January, February, whenever they roll that out, that everyone will be able to start kind of taking advantage of this. And it's just a cool new way to kind of, again, utilize stuff on your phone without being distracted by looking separately at your phone. You can quickly do something with Phone Link, go back to working in Excel, versus doing something in Excel, looking over, picking up your phone, and then playing around with it and getting lost in your phone for another half hour. We're going to go into our next topic, which is Snapdragon PCs tried to hit a new low benchmark for prices, that is.
And I hope they do.
Yeah, what do you got the details on this one about?
Well, I'm kind of going to jump into this one. You wrote this one up yourself, and I kind of borrowed your headline here for the podcast, because I figured this would be one of those that we
Yeah,
could chat
we
about together.
well then I will
So
start off while
go
you're
ahead.
looking up.
Go ahead.
Snapdragon, Qualcomm had their earnings call last week, I believe, the end of last week, and during that phone call, the CEO, I forget his name, had mentioned that the company is looking to dominate the market, obviously, and they currently are, but they plan to do it going into 2025, and with a new chipset, they plan on bringing the cost down of our initial Snapdragon X Elite chip powered PCs. Right now, I think the cheapest one is a Microsoft Surface laptop at $900 or something
Yep,
like that, if I'm not
that's it.
mistaken. Everything else is 1,000 and above. And we kind of saw this when the Intel introduced Ultrabooks. They kind of had a baseline price for the new streamlined feature set for it. They kind of set that with the first version of the Elite X or X Elite chips. They had to have a certain amount of NPUs. They had to have the Copilot button. They had to have all these things. And who knows if that is just the initial. And I'm sure they're shedding the R&D costs for a lot of these new devices onto the consumer. But going forward next year, Snapdragon is saying that they'll be able to allow their OEM partners to start charging as low as $700 for the updated version of their next chipset. So come January, February, probably after CES or whatnot, we'll see another batch of AI powered PCs with the newest version of Snapdragon's X series chip in there, and hopefully we'll start seeing those again. We'll see an Asus at $700. We'll see maybe an Acer at $600. Who knows? Microsoft might be able to go down to $800 for their laptop Surface devices. They also mentioned that again, they had seen some versions from OEMs of X PCs being sold out, which is a good sign. I wrote
Yes.
about the fact that the first time they partnered with Microsoft for the Surface Pro X, they were basically the only company doing so. And so when those sales didn't go anywhere, Snapdragon was kind of stalled. They have broadened their OEM partnerships. They're working again with Asus, Toshiba, with Dell, uh, HP, Lenovo, and they're seeing actual demand for these things. So that is at least warranted another version of the chip coming out. And we know it, while Copilot and Recall were like the big selling points for these things and all the AI features you can do with it, the understated one was the longer battery life. And I think people will just bank on that. And if they can keep extending that lead, the AI will catch up and make these things even more, give them a bigger value proposition in the long run. What are your thoughts on that?
I want to make a quick, smart comment, kind of going to play into where I think this is going. What's recall? What are we talking about? And I'm not making fun of Microsoft here. Yes,
So it
Microsoft.
sounds a lot like you are.
Yes, Microsoft botched the launch of recall. Absolutely, but I think we did here on the podcast at times. I think everybody got tied up to that software feature. That's why I'm going to buy the Snapdragon device. You and I kind of went back and forth before these devices come out. Why buy the device for a piece of software? And I think now that these devices are in the wild, people, like you said, they're wanting the longer battery life, and I think recall has kind of took a back seat into the marketing plan, because I've not even heard Microsoft mention recall, even in the dev channels and whatnot of where's recall. I've not seen any YouTube videos of, hey, this is where recall is and this is the way it's going to work. I know I have a Lenovo Snapdragon. You have one, and without gushing too much, I'm ready to see the next version because we took our devices and we used them. We didn't just open the box, wow, pretty, 10 hours of battery life, write it up, and we're done. I have taken mine in the field. I use mine many, many hours every day. For those looking a comparison, at least for me, mine is very MacBook Air like. And I'm going to have my write up hopefully up this afternoon before I leave the office. And I encourage you folks to read it. But I'm a big fan of these devices, and I'm impressed now that I've had one for a while, and Microsoft and Lenovo have pushed out their updates. I'm impressed with what the first generation looks like and what the second generation can be. For me, I think we got a little more first generation in real life usage, maybe than what we expected. I'm not running up on as many oops, this doesn't run. In fact, I've not had any oops, this doesn't run in quite a while. You know,
Yeah, me too.
so I'm ready. I'm glad to see these are in demand. I'm glad to hear you say that because I've been concerned that they weren't selling, and I get it. The price is up there because, like you said, they've got to make up some of that dev cost. Well, you don't have to do that dev cost the next time around. And I'm not saying let's get rid of Chromebooks, but when you put this post up, that's something I had been thinking about. Do these devices have a broader picture of crunching down on that Chromebook educational, that educational thing that, a lot of schools use Chromebooks by default, and you can only use the apps that run on Chromebook. Well, what if there's a Snapdragon contract somewhere in education later down the line? So I'm excited to see where we're going. Please keep making these things. Intel, if you're still out there, I'm still waiting for your comparison chip. AMD, you took a pretty good shot first time around. We need you to throw another pitch. I'm going to stick with my Snapdragon laptop.
Yeah, I was just thinking too. I wonder if their new chip is even more heat efficient, so that they can start yanking some of these cooling systems out to save themselves
Yes.
however many cents it costs to put those in when they do it in bulk. So, well, we'll find that stuff out come January. They will also be announcing Snapdragon, a new wave of PCs at IFA in a couple weeks as well, and they're very bullish on those. So they think that those second wave devices will also be in high demand. Moving on to our next topic, we have unlicensed OneDrive for business accounts will be frozen, and Microsoft will basically strong arm you, financially speaking, in order to get access to them. And this is starting relatively soon. So for you IT admins out there, go around collecting all your unused licenses. Starting January 27th, 2025, the tech giant will begin freezing unauthorized accounts that have been unused for 90 days or so. Microsoft's argument is that unauthorized accounts are a security and compliance headache, which I don't disagree with them on that.
No.
What does an unlicensed account mean? What is the context behind that? And again, it's one that hasn't been activated or expired or not associated with an organization for more than 90 days, or that organization's Microsoft or Office 365 subscription licensing bundle. According to reports, IT managers can license these accounts and give them new life. They can hide them or suspend and delete them. But again, if nothing is done automatically, Microsoft will take over these accounts. Organizers can access archive data for about 5 cents per gigabyte per month and an additional 60 cents per gigabyte. Administrators will begin being billed of these services in April 2025. So again, here's your timeline. January 2025, Microsoft puts the warning notice out there saying these will be shut down. You have 90 days from that point to do something with it, hide it, reactivate it, delete it, suspend it, do something with it. If you choose to do nothing with it, say you go on vacation for that reason or just forget about it, Microsoft will then seize that licensed account and charge you 5 cents, anywhere from 5 cents to 60 cents in order to get whatever user's information that you need off of that or that's being archived. Admins looking to get ahead of the game, Microsoft suggests heading to SharePoint Admin Center. You can create a report about unauthorized OneDrive users and download it as a CSV file. If you care about the user friendliness, Microsoft is on top of it. There's an interactive UI for monitoring and planning to basically retrieve these. So you can kind of use their prompts in order to get all that stuff. And, again, you have until January to kind of get this sorted out. But, holidays are quickly approaching. You're going to have people leaving. Unfortunately, some people might get fired or whatnot during this time. Just make sure you're on top of getting that. Otherwise, you will be charged.
Clean up your stuff, folks. It helps us all. We're seeing these security events more and more frequently. So, just overall, not just OneDrive, keep an eye on your stuff. It's good for all of us.
Speaking of security, we have Microsoft going to the Red Hat Hackers Convention, and they were faced with, I believe, one person. Again, this is just one person. I'm sure there are others that was able to find 15 different ways to break Copilot. Unfortunately, this was, I believe, Black Hat USA 2024, which happened last week or so. A former Microsoft security architect, Michael Barguri, Barguri, I apologize if I butchered that, held 2 sessions during the convention of the cybersecurity conference. One was labeled 15 Ways to Break Copilot, and the other was labeled Living Off Microsoft Copilot. He also had accompanying supplemental information that he put on to the website Zenity Labs that highlighted successful instances of spear phishing, which was enabled by Copilot's unique generative features. Basically, what spear phishing is, I believe his specific version of it was called LOL Copilot, but it's basically a self-replicating mass email distribution loop that leverages Copilot's ability to generatively create automated emails that mimic the host's writing style and lends credibility to the presence. So it will basically scan your Outlook, see the ways that you write, and then mimic that, and then send out prompts to everybody in your contacts with emails that look like they could have been written from you. And then once open, it does its damage. Uh, he said that he quote, "I can do this with everyone you have spoken to, and I can send hundreds of emails on your behalf. A hacker would spend days crafting the right email just to get people to click on it. He can do this in minutes because of the AI features of Copilot." I don't know. He hasn't spoken out or given any public information about how he does this effectively, but he has spoken with Microsoft, and I believe they are working together to kind of uh, have some kind of solution for this, or to pick up uh, or patch that up a little bit. What are your thoughts on this before I move to the next thing?
I expected some security holes. Number one, uh, you know, uh, and there's probably more security holes that we don't know about. The bad part about it is what this guy has done has made public news. So now all the not so nice hackers, let's call it that, are out there trying to exploit this to do negative things. That's kind of the bad part of this. I'm hoping with all the security issues that Microsoft has had this year, they've already fixed this, or they're close to a fix, and we're not going to drag this out into other issues, that just don't get fixed or haven't been fixed, because that's been my concern about AI. We've had deep fakes and whatnot, with Taylor Swift and that type of thing. But when AI can start producing content that looks like you in the written form, imagine getting a letter to your boss that says something that you didn't write. The boss takes action and you have no job, or you lose a position, or you lose an opportunity because AI wrote something and you didn't. This is the negative part of AI. Let's clean this up and clean this up now, because
Yeah,
this
Microsoft's
could get ugly.
they have their big push for security, and Lord knows that they have a lot of products that need to be secured. Azure, Office, Windows. So it seems like AI is just another vector that they're going to have to try and plug, and hopefully they do it quickly. With that being said, Microsoft has some updates that are going out to Copilot for enterprise data protection. They mentioned in a press release yesterday, 2 days ago. Quote, "Next month, we are making several updates to the free Microsoft Copilot service for users with a Microsoft Intra account to enhance data security, privacy, and compliance, and simplify the user experience. For users signed in with the Intra account, Microsoft Copilot will offer enterprise data protection, EDP, and redirect users to a new simplified ad-free, which is nice, user interface design for work and education. The enterprise data protections consist of, I believe, like it said, support Intra accounts. Microsoft will offer these data protections, I believe, at no cost. And it's partly because it's under the commitment under the data protection addendum and product terms. To apply to customers, again, what you're going to be getting with these EDPs is Microsoft will secure the data with encryption and at rest and in transit. So for both endpoints and the going points, rigorous physical security controls and data isolation between tenants. Data will stay private, except unless there's any additional instructions on the user's part. A user will be able to access controls and policies to apply to the Copilot. Prompts and responses are logged, retained, and available for audit, e-discovery, and advanced Microsoft purview capabilities. And then you will be also hopefully protected against AI risk, with Microsoft saying that it will help safeguard against harmful content and prompt injections. And then again, your data isn't used to train the foundational model, which is again what a lot of content creators or anybody who is looking to secure their own content or data or IP is kind of worried about. The prompts and responses are not trained for the foundational models, says Microsoft. As far as the simplified experience for that UI that they were just talking about, they're responding to customer feedback. Again, for the ad-free Copilot user interface designed to work with education. They will be, I don't know how it differs from the Copilot that we get with that kind of squarish now design that got pulled from the pane. But we'll be seeing what it looks like come mid-September. So keep your eye out for that, everybody. And this again, just another kind of way that they're looking to at least shore up some version of Copilot. Hopefully, again, this is for enterprise, free enterprise users. Hopefully, this trickles down to us.
Yes, I want to see this stuff secure and locked up so we can enjoy it without worry of being imitated.
And then we have our last Copilot story, which is Microsoft getting sick and tired of us not figuring out how to use AI. They are going to be testing out prompt suggestions. I don't know when they're going to be coming, and they kind of sort of do this currently, but these would be contextual search prompts. So based on basically the last thing that you've done when you go to open up Copilot via the button or the icon or the tab in your Edge browser, wherever Copilot is visible, and whatever action was being used in whatever app that it's accompanied, you will now start getting prompts for it. So if you're considering using it and don't kind of know what to do with it, again, these chats will start coming up. We have on our screen, for those of you who are just listening, some of the prompts will involve quizzing yourself. So you can do some quick quizzes to just keep your mind active. We have another email prompt for email the HOA. For those of you who are new home buyers, old long-term home buyers, having to deal with HOAs is a pain. If you want to figure out how to petition next week or your next HOA meeting, like, hey, how can we lower the prices? I'm sure Copilot can help you with that. Another prompt is adding an image to something. There's a prompt for getting in shape, a prompt for going on vacation, or creating a vacation presentation. I don't know who creates, it's just called a photo album, isn't it? That sounds so corporate. Another one's a brainstorm funny names, understand quickly, create a shopping list. Again, these are all things that will be in the search text prompt box before you start typing in your next thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I think we need to educate consumers how to use AI. I know in what I see every day, just working with the general public, that button's down there, that button's on the keyboard, but nobody really knows how to use it. Now, your content creators, your tech folks, your programmers, your folks like that, we're all over it. We use it. We need it. Let me even go that far. We need it. We enjoy it. It makes our life that much easier. But kind of circles back to what we said about AI in the beginning when we were talking about Microsoft charging $30 a seat in the business world. And our comment was there'll be one person or two people in the business world that they're paying that $30 a seat for, because those people will be experts in how to craft the AI prompts to get the responses. And I've even seen at one of the universities around here where they are coming up with the AI curriculum to be able to do just that. So we learned how to search. As Google has gotten better, we've learned how to manipulate even what we ask Google.com. Bing, bless its heart, we'll just let Bing be Bing. But we have learned how to craft our search queries for Google. And we do get the AI response from Google in the middle of our searches a lot of the times. But I'm seeing a lot of people look over top of that. And I think what we're going to have to do, and we spoke off Mike about this, is we're going to have to be able to ask these AI prompts, just like we do the Google searches, right in the web browser. Type it right in the address bar. Get your answer. I don't want the disconnect between search and AI. I don't know what the right answer is to get people to engage, but I think this is the start. People have got to say, "Oh, AI can do that." Just like building a website. Nobody knew how to build a website. Somebody figured out how to put a photo online. A company called GeoCities was born, and here we are. So people have got to say, "Hey, AI can do that," and then play with it. Just ask it things. Find out what it can do for you. Everybody's different.
Totally agree. I think we are in the second phase of AI already. It's moving very quickly. But as you mentioned at the top of the podcast, every company that uses the phrase AI has invested some sort into it, or at least have convinced investors to fund money into, building an app, securing servers, building out their data centers or whatnot. They've all done that the heavy footwork of it. They've poured money into it. And now they have to figure out a way to return that money. And waiting for people to figure out how to use AI is working negatively against these companies. We saw Google push Gemini very hard during their Google
Yes.
Pixel event because that is their next big thing. They're still making hand over fist with search, but as we mentioned last week, search could be broken up. Google could be forced to run search as a separate business. It may have some new regulatory mandates for transparency, some things. They may even break up the deal between Apple and Google, where it pays the $25, 25 billion to be the default search engine on the iPhone. So they're going to need to diversify hard and fast from traditional search, and they're banking on people wanting, liking, and loving Gemini because all those features that are in Gemini that are going to be the new Pixel devices are only going to be there just like Samsung for a year. After that point, you were going to start being charged for a lot of this cool new, circle to search and translating features, things like the same as Samsung. So they're hoping that at some point they could figure out the key factor, the key feature of AI that you like, that you will be willing to pay 5, 10, upwards of $20 a month to use, because that's how they're going to return this money. Microsoft's doing the same thing. They're trying to figure out with these prompts, like, hey, maybe we can
Copilot
figure
Pro.
maybe we can figure out a prompt that people love to use all the time that will be worthy enough to be able to say, hey, we're going to charge that 5, $10 to keep you using that version of the prompt. We'll add more. We'll continue to add more things to it. But we at least nailed the first thing. Right now, they just kind of put it out there and hope people would figure it out themselves. Now they're sort of running out of time as investors start asking, like, hey, when's that money coming back? And now they're kind of moving to phase two, like, all right, let's figure out what people will use this thing for so that we can then charge and then say, here you go, investors, here's your money. This is what they're using it for. This is the real world return on that. That's my last word. If you want to put another thing in, please go ahead. If not, then we'll
I,
wrap up the pod.
I'll say one quick thing. Gemini is pretty good. I use Gemini on a regular basis every day on my phone. I use Copilot equally for completely different tasks. I wouldn't be I will throw this out there for I'll help Google for a minute. They do have a deal running, 19.99 a month. I don't know if the 90-day free trial is still available or not. I did get a free 90 days. It includes 2 terabytes of cloud storage. So for those that need to store those photos, your Gmail account running out of space, they're kind of throwing the storage at you as an incentive to, make this purchase. Storage is a lot cheaper than compute modules for running AI, but you do get the Gemini Advanced, the full consumer model with that 19.99 a month. I'll be the first to admit I've been paying 19.99 a month ever since my 90-day free trial ran out. Now, what we've got to be careful of is the cable subscription tactic. Just like you just mentioned, certain prompts. To get this prompt, you pay this money. To get this prompt, you pay that money. I think if we get into, in order to get ESPN, you've got to have, 5 or 10 channels that you don't want to watch. I don't see that work. But I think, like you said, we do have to get to a point where we're putting this money back in the investors' hands. So not only these companies stay profitable, we don't have to talk about layoffs, which we didn't have to talk about this week, and I'm glad we didn't.
I mean, there was Sonos that laid off 100 people but kept the CEO for some random reason, but it wasn't in the thousands, thank God. Um, with that being said, we will leave you guys on that note. Where can people find you if they want to talk about things other than layoffs? Maybe they
David
got
P.
hired.
No, go ahead, please do. David PAJ 1978. That is over on Elon's platform, whatever it's being called today, and that is also over on Meta's platform, Threads. Threads put out some new features this week, which was pretty good. I peeked over there at those. I may have to spend a little more time on Threads and a little less Elon.
I find myself spending more time on Threads. It's just a nicer, happier place if you are not involved in politics. You can find me at Mindhead1, though, on Twitter if you are over there. But if you're on Threads or Instagram, you can find me Kareem Anderson. I will be talking about the Dell XPS. Where is that? 13 uh, with the X chip in there because I am loving this thing. It is pretty awesome. It is a battery powerhouse for those of you who are looking to get into one of these X Elite PCs. I love the brand of Microsoft Surface, but I think Dell might have nailed it with this one. This might be the best one out. Um, if not, go play at your Best Buy. Go check them all out. They're all out there. I've seen them at several Best Buys. Play around with them. Let us know your thoughts. Go to the website. Continue reading. Continue supporting us. We appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week with another pod.
Have a good week, folks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, folks.